Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we try to make sense of big company secrets. And today we're diving into AgriFORCE Growing Systems Limited, a company that seems to be busy growing more than just crops. Get ready because this filing is packed with news about major deals, money changing hands, and even some high-profile advisors joining the team. It is a real shake-up, and we're going to break down exactly what it all means for this company. Before we dive in, if you find value in these insights, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss our future deep dives. Also, we have a fantastic community over on Discord, so join us there through the link in the description below for even more corporate discussions. Alright, so AgriFORCE Growing Systems Limited has just filed their Form 8K, which is basically a report for big events that happen in a company. The most important date here is the 5th of November 2025, because that is when a lot of this action took place. So, what happened on the 5th of November? The company announced the closing of something called a PIPE transaction. PIPE stands for Private Investment in Public Equity. Think of it as a quick way for a publicly traded company like AgriFORCE to raise cash by selling shares directly to big investors, often without all the usual red tape. This particular deal was previously mentioned back in September, and now it is officially done. Now let's talk numbers. The company issued a massive amount of shares here, over 86 million and nearly 6.2 million in what they call pre-funded warrants. What are warrants? Well, they give the holder the right to buy shares at a set price later on. Pre-funded warrants are a bit special. They can be exercised right away. All of this brought in a huge sum of money, over $219 million. How was this money paid? About $145 million was in cash and what they call cash equivalents. But here is where it gets interesting. Over $73 million was paid for in AVAX tokens. Yes, you heard that right, cryptocurrency. This shows AgriFORCE is really leaning into the digital asset space, using AVAX coins as payment for their shares. On that same day, the company also brought on board some big names as strategic advisors. We're talking about Anthony Scaramucci, through an entity called Ground Tunnel Capital LLC, and Brett Tejpaul. These guys are going to be advising the company on strategy, growth, and industry trends, especially in digital assets and financial services. Their initial term is for 1 year and it can automatically renew. As part of their compensation, these strategic advisors received over 928,000 restricted common shares. These shares will be released to them gradually over 36 months, meaning they have to stick around and do good work to earn them fully. This is a common way to align the interests of advisors with the company's long-term success. Now, who helped make this big PIPE deal happen? Cohen & Company Securities LLC was the sole placement agent, meaning they found the investors. For their work, they received over 902,000 restricted common shares. In return for these shares, AgriFORCE also agreed to file a registration statement with the CC to allow the resale of these shares. This section basically confirms that the shares issued to the strategic advisors and to Cohen were part of unregistered sales of equity securities. This means they weren't offered to the general public in a traditional way, but rather through private deals using exemptions like Section 402 of the Securities Act. This is pretty standard for these types of transactions, allowing companies to raise capital faster without going through the full registration process. Now, a major shift happened on the board of directors. On the closing date, several directors, David Welch, John Mickelson, Richard Lasichin, and Elaine Goldwater, resigned. The company stated these resignations were solely due to the PIPE transaction closing and not because of any disagreements. This often happens in companies after a big funding round, especially when new investors come in. And who is filling those seats? The board appointed 4 new directors, Matt Zhang, Xiaoju Yangqiu, and Dan Mendez. Matt Zhang will be the chairman of the board. These new directors bring a wealth of experience, particularly in technology, blockchain, and finance. Matt Zhang, for instance, founded HiveMind, a Web3-focused investment firm, and has a background at Citi. Yangqiu has extensive experience in the digital asset industry, having worked at Hedera Hashgraph and Abra. Xiaoju has a background at KKR, a major private equity firm, and has led their digital asset strategy. Dan Mendez from Blockcore Partners brings financial and tax expertise in the blockchain space. It is worth noting that Matt Zhang has an ownership interest in HiveMind, which is also the company's asset manager. This indicates a pretty close relationship and a potential for synergy between the advisory role, the asset management, and the board's direction. For their service, each of the new directors, except for Matt Zhang, will receive restricted shares valued at $75,000 annually, vesting over a year. This is standard practice to ensure board members are incentivized. There was also a significant change to the company's equity incentive plan. Shareholders approved an amendment to increase the total number of common shares that can be issued under the 2024 equity incentive plan from a little over 87,000 to a much larger 5.75 million shares. This move is clearly to provide more shares for future grants to employees, advisors, and potentially for future acquisitions. This section reiterates the closing of the PIPE transaction on the 5th of November, confirming over 86 million common shares and the pre-funded warrants were issued. This reiterates the financial details of the PIPE closing, emphasizing that a substantial portion, over $73 million, was paid in AVAX tokens. Again, this shows a strong commitment to integrating digital assets into their financing strategy. They're valuing the AVAX tokens based on their average price over a specific period. After the dust settled from the PIPE, there were over 93 million common shares issued and outstanding. This is a significant increase which dilutes the ownership stake of existing shareholders, but is often a necessary step for growth. Finally, each of the new directors entered into indemnification agreements. These agreements are designed to protect the directors from personal liability related to their service on the board, so long as they acted in good faith. They also include provisions for advancing expenses if legal action arises. This is a pretty standard protection for board members in public companies. So, what is the story here? AgriFORCE is making some big moves. They've successfully raised a substantial amount of capital, over $219 million, and they've done it by embracing cryptocurrency like AVAX tokens. This signals a forward-thinking approach to finance and a clear interest in the digital asset ecosystem. The appointment of these new, very experienced directors, especially those with deep ties to blockchain and finance, suggests a strategic pivot or at least a significant emphasis on leveraging new technologies. They're bringing in serious talent to guide them. However, raising this much money through new share issuances does lead to dilution for long-term shareholders. The real question will be how effectively this new capital and new leadership can drive growth and innovation. The company is clearly signaling a strong direction towards digital assets, and the expertise of the new board members seems geared towards capitalizing on opportunities in that space. The risks here are inherent in any company making such a significant shift in strategy and financing volatile crypto markets, regulatory uncertainties in digital assets, and the general challenges of executing ambitious growth plans. But the potential rewards could be substantial if they successfully navigate these waters. Alright? That is our breakdown of AgriFORCE Growing Systems Limited's latest filing. What is your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Do you think embracing crypto for financing is a smart move? Drop your thoughts in the comments if this analysis was valuable. Hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.